It is 8:08 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 5th day of August 2026. This is episode 1366 of Bitcoin. And boy, howdy, I got to get right into it because I've got a meeting that I've got to get to here in a little bit. So we're just going to give you all the news that you can use about Bitcoin and macro from around the world with me, your host, David Bennett, from Bitcoin Magazine. Nearly $32 million in dormant Bitcoin has moved after Coldcard hack reaches an estimated $130 million. This is Matthew DeSalvo writing. The whales are on the move. An OG Bitcoin address holding 500 coins worth $31.8 million at today's prices shifted its stash on Tuesday after not budging for 12 years. Blockchain data shows that the legacy Bitcoin address moved all the funds in one go, paying just 191 Satoshis or about 12 cents in transaction fees. First flagged by Look On Chain on X, the address piqued Bitcoiners' interest due to the recent wallet drainage happening with Coldcards, some speculating that the holder moved the funds to a safer place. Hackers last week started taking over $35 million in Bitcoin from wallets after discovering a vulnerability in the Coldcard wallet product. Now the amount drained could stand at $130 million, according to Galaxy Research. Bitcoin that sits still for so many years is often attributed to lost coins. Amateur investors often, either forget their private keys or something else happens. But whales, an investor or investors holding over 1,000 Bitcoin, occasionally move funds after many years, leading to big market moves as other investors often expect a big sale. Sometimes whales are just moving their Bitcoin to a hardware wallet or whatever, consolidating their coins. Following the Coldcard security issue, Bitcoiners have been urging investors to get their coins to a new security setup, and CoinKite, the company behind Coldcard, said on Sunday that all of its models were now vulnerable following more thefts. Engineers have warned that all Bitcoin addresses related to Coldcard should be at risk eventually, or could be at risk eventually. Okay, there's a couple of things about this one. First and foremost, if it is true that this stash shifted on Tuesday after not budging for 12 years, then chances are really good this doesn't have that much to do with the Coldcard attack because Coldcard wasn't around 12 years ago. At least not in the iteration that, is causing the problems today. So I actually don't think that this move is related directly to the Coldcard, although it could be. It could have shaken the holder out of a whole bunch of stuff. But the real problem is that everybody shifted, or not everybody, but many wallet addresses have shifted from Coldcard addresses to other setups that are clearly more secure. What does that do? Think about it this way. Go back to Maduro in Venezuela when Trump basically got him, went in there and pulled him out and then took him back to the United States. And now he's sitting in prison or something like that. I don't exactly know what's going on with Maduro right now, but he's cooling his heels on a cement slab at one point or another. Well, prior to that, and this has actually happened a lot, and it's happened in a lot of different countries around the world, not just Venezuela and Maduro, but drug cartels in Mexico. The following has happened to those guys, as well as the stuff going on in Israel and Palestine and Jordan and whatever, where we will do something like maybe attack a couple of drug boats off the coast of South America, and then we look and monitor for communications. And then those communications start tying together and start pointing to possible targets, right? Now, I don't want to scare anybody here, but when this Coldcard hack happened, and no, I'm not suggesting that this was some kind of organized government thing. I'm not discounting it either, but it's not my gut feeling. When it happened and people started moving all these coins around that haven't moved in a long time, it put a lot of signal out there. There's a lot of addresses that are now being connected to other addresses. There's a lot of coins that are being consolidated because we're not having, we didn't feel that we should spend that much time making sure that I had like 3 addresses that I was using on my Coldcard, and each one was specific to, a kind of Bitcoin. Now, when I moved them, I made sure that I had 3 specific addresses on my new setup to receive those coins so that they wouldn't commingle for various reasons. One is that some of those coins actually don't belong to me. They belong to my family's companies, and they should not be commingled. However, may not be the case for a lot of people that moved their coins in a rush, which is why, if you're still thinking that you need to move your coins, please be calm, cool, and collected about it. Because I'll bet you a lot of people mixed KYC coins with non-KYC coins. I'll bet a lot of people ended up not mixed, but consolidated, which is mixing is at the same time, but it's not through a Bitcoin mixer. It's not to obfuscate anything. It's just, in reality, it's not all that good. If you've got KYC coins and non-KYC coins and you consolidated everything together, essentially everything is, KYC'd. And a lot of people probably did that. So just understand that as the flurry of activity occurred with all this movement of Bitcoin, we don't really know the ramifications of the signals that were sent out into the ether, because all this is recorded forever on the Bitcoin blockchain. So just understand that. It doesn't mean set your hair on fire and run around in a circle screaming at the top of your lungs. It just means be aware that this has occurred and that there could be ramifications later on down the road, which is why calm, cool, and collected is the only way to move your coins if you haven't moved them yet and you are planning to do so. If you've got non-KYC coins in a stack and you have KYC coins in a different stack, keep them separate. Don't freak out and do everything fast, because we've already had a couple of people move their stack into a scam wallet that they found on the Apple App Store. And it was I think it was a fake Sparrow wallet, except that we've already been warned that Sparrow does not have a mobile wallet. They are desktop only. And this guy lost like 6 Bitcoin out of the whole deal. So you got to take a deep breath. I mean, I understand it's like we need to get it off fast, and I think most of the movement is basically done. But if you're out there and you're still like going, maybe I should move my coins from whatever to something new, just please be aware that you need to be calm, cool, and collected about it. Now, speaking of, we're going to stay with the Coldcard thing here. From Decrypt and Jason Nelson, Ledger says Coldcard exploit shows Bitcoin wallet security must adapt to artificial intelligence. Ledger says the recent Coldcard exploit should serve as a warning for the cryptocurrency industry. According to Ledger CTO Charles Guillemette, I can't pronounce his name, the incident exposed weaknesses in how some devices, in this case hardware cryptocurrency wallets, generate cryptographic randomness, while showing how artificial intelligence is reshaping both cyber attacks and digital defense. Quote, "We're treating this as a serious reminder of how the whole security model of a hardware wallet lives or dies on randomness. Cryptography is hard, and implementing it securely is even harder. This week's Coldcard incident made that visible in the most expensive way possible." And that's from Gilmet, or however you pronounce his name. The comments come as the fallout from the Coldcard exploit continues to grow. Last week, Coldcard maker CoinKite disclosed a flaw in the air-gapped Coldcard Bitcoin wallet that traces back to March 2021 firmware. The bug used the software fallback instead of the device's hardware random number generator to create wallet recovery seeds, making some private keys guessable and allowing thieves to steal user Bitcoin. To date, losses have reached $130 million, while other thefts remain under investigation. On Sunday, CoinKite released patch firmware and urged affected users to move funds to newly generated wallets. And of course, CoinKite did not respond to a request for comment. Ledger said its own hardware wallets were not affected because they generate recovery phrases differently. Quote, Ledger hardware wallets draw their root secret from a true random or hardware random number generator built directly into a certified secure element with no software fallback path. That generator produces the full 256 bits of entropy for every seed. Quote, open source and reviewed are not the same thing, Gilmet said. This flaw sat in public code for more than 5 years until, reportedly, an adversary used AI to find it, a reminder that being open and being reviewed are two different things, end quote. He said AI is changing cybersecurity by allowing attackers to scan code, search for configuration errors, and identify vulnerabilities at machine speeds. Quote, that means defense has to move at the same speed. It needs to come from security by design, hardware, and math, end quote. In May, a security researcher using Claude Opus 4.8 discovered a 4-year-old vulnerability that could have fueled unlimited minting of Zcash, leading to large-scale investor panic and sending Zcash down more than 40% in one single day as a response. And according to Gilmet, Ledger says it has spent the past 2 years using AI alongside human security engineers and cryptographers to review code and identify vulnerabilities before attackers can exploit them. Quote, we also don't just rely on our own word for it. Our Don John research lab exists to try to break our products before anyone else can, end quote. To mitigate future risk, he said users evaluating any hardware wallet should understand how it generates randomness and whether that process has been independently certified. Quote, randomness has come from physics, not from a formula. It has to be certified by people whose job is trying to break that claim, not just asserted by the vendor themselves, end quote. Okay. This statement here, to mitigate future risk, he said that users evaluating hardware wallets should understand how it generates randomness and whether that process has been independently certified. This is part of what I keep talking about lately with the swarm auditing. Yet even that, I still think it's a good idea. I'm going to be, blaring that horn for a while, but let's be real. How are you going to make sure that something was independently certified? What does that look like? It's a question that we need to ask. How do we understand how randomness is generated when you've got PhD mathematicians that can barely hold a conversation with people because they're so freaking autistic, and they're the guys that are like, specialists in actual true randomness? How do we understand something at the level of retail that is theoretical? And no, I'm not suggesting that it clearly doesn't work. It didn't work in the case of Coldcard, but that wasn't because of randomness. That was because of shitty randomness. That was because of shitty firmware. That was because of shitty decisions made by the CoinKite crew, not because of actual randomness. But these are things that we don't have any choices anymore. At the retail level, we're all going to have to get smarter. We're going to actually have to. And the thing about it is that humans are smart. Okay, yeah, some of them are just stupid. No, and some of them are malicious, but stupid and malicious are not the same thing, right? I'm going to this position where, generally speaking, we have the capacity to understand this. Do we have the capacity to not be lazy anymore? Because that's where it's boiling down to in retail. But then again, laziness and apathy look a lot alike. And I've been talking about the apathy of the human species as of late for quite a while. We're apathetic in our architecture. We're apathetic in music. We're just consuming whatever is given to us, and we're not really discerning what it is we truly want, because we're just trying to fucking survive at this point. And it makes everything a slog. It makes everything hard. And here we are in a situation where now we actually have to participate, which is not all that bad. I mean, this is, maybe some of us will get slapped out of our funk, out of being in the rut that we're in, out of being apathetic, out of being lazy, and start to use the brain that God gave us to think critically in real world terms about how some of this shit really works. How can we participate in asking questions to the vendors of these things? How can we do it without sounding like a complete asshole? That's another problem that we've got because of social media. I've seen so many people they're writing things that are just rude. Now, if you're responding to CoinKite or Coldcard tweets by telling him, GFY, I don't blame you. That's honestly, have at it, bro. You want to take out being rude on somebody, go after Coldcard. They deserve every freaking bit of it. But there's been some rude comments on hardware wallet manufacturers' tweets and these manufacturers have not been screwed. They still are secure at this point. We always got to, keep our eyes open. But some people are saying things to vendors that haven't been affected by this at all that are actually kind of rude. And I'm like, well, does the person writing this even know that they're being rude? Is my question. Or have we fallen into a pattern of writing things that are so terse and so short that they can't come off as anything else but rude? And we're going to have to start really watching ourselves in our writing. When we're writing tweets or writing blog posts or whatever, we're at this point, I think we should start being careful and stop being apathetic about writing one sentence just to get my thought out there and not giving a shit how it comes across. We can't do that anymore. Anywhere. And that includes being like when you're writing an email back to a work colleague. Stop writing terse bullshit. Actually care about what you write, because I think we've gotten into a situation through social media where everything is short and everything is terse and everything sounds rude, whether we mean it to be rude or not. It's a dirty way to go, man. It's just dirty. And if you need to get clean from that, go to my friend SoapMiner at SoapMiner.com. That's right. SoapMiner.com makes handmade tallow soap. 100% grass-fed beef tallow is the main ingredients. The main ingredients. Man, this is soap the way that your grandma, probably great-grandma used to make soap. Definitely your great-great-grandma and your great-great-great-grandfather too. They all made soap. It wasn't just women's work, man. This is SoapMiner. He's a dude and he makes soap, and he makes it the way that soap should be made. There's like 3 ingredients in his base soap. It's lye, with sodium hydroxide, which you need to make soap, distilled water, and the aforementioned 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That's the main ingredients of soap. It's only 3 ingredients. But then he'll put stuff like cedarwood scent into it and a little bit of, colored sand to, make it look nice sometimes. But if you want rough cut tallow soap, that's just the 3 ingredients, he's got that too. And he's got rosemary tallow soap. He even has deodorants, and he's got some lip balm in there. But pine tar tallow soap, goat's milk tallow soap, lemongrass, orange clove, lavender, tea tree, peppermint. Dude, he's got all the soaps, including one of my all-time favorites, Earl Grey tallow. Yes, like the tea. It's got Earl of Bergamot, or well, oil of bergamot in it, which is how you get Earl Grey tea. Cedarwood remains my favorite soap that he makes is the Cedarwood tallow soap. This stuff is awesome. I use it to wash my hair. I use it to lather my face before I shave. And I don't even condition the whiskers because the tallow does that for me. It's like a conditioner and shampoo and face scrub and body wash all in one bar, and they last forever. And he takes Bitcoin for his soap. In fact, as far as I can tell, he doesn't take fiat. You have to buy it in Bitcoin. And if you're not selling it in Bitcoin, you're not in the Circle P. The Circle P is where I bring plebs with goods and services to other plebs like you who want to buy those goods and services, but you're going to be buying into Bitcoin because, like I said, if you're not selling into Bitcoin, you're not in the Circle P. Use code Bitcoin and for 10% off of your entire purchase. That's Bitcoin and as a coupon code. Go to SoapMiner.com. That's SoapMiner.com. Is self-custody dead? I don't know. Juan Galt from Bitcoin Magazine. Self-custody is dead. Long live self-custody. You knew it was coming. The Coldcard hack last week dealt a serious low blow to certain elements of the Bitcoin industry. A somber introspection has begun to question many of the practices and assumptions involved in securing Bitcoin at the retail level. The consequences of this process might not be visible for many months. Some are saying that self-custody is dead. Some reports estimate that over 11,000 Bitcoin were moved to custodial exchanges last week as users fled one of the most popular hardware wallets in the industry. The hack, which is ongoing and users can still save themselves from, has seen north of 1,300 Bitcoin stolen, with some estimates as high as 2,000 coin. CoinKite in particular is its CoinKite in particular and its most vocal founder, Novak or NVK, had very strong opinions about what it took to secure Bitcoin private keys from hackers. Its hardware wallets were air-gapped to make sure malware doesn't exfiltrate data through USB cables. It used low-resolution LED screens to avoid the complexity of touchscreens. It developed protocols like BBQR and integrated NFC so that information could be transferred between the device and a computer without them touching or sharing SD cards. The list of paranoid design choices that made Coldcards iconic is long. Yet, the hackers involved in the theft of Bitcoin held in Coldcards last week did not use any methods you might see in a modern spy movie. No. They exploited the one feature, the one thing Coldcard should have absolutely locked down: the generation of keys with high enough randomness, also known as entropy. In other words, secret securing that are actually mathematically hard to guess. It's a bad sentence right there. Sorry, guys, but I didn't write it. While the devices were intended to use high-quality sources of entropy, the firmware had a bug which did not, resulting in Bitcoin private keys that were, in turn, very easy to guess. The bug went undiscovered for years, and the product only grew in popularity in the meantime. Well, until last week. Despite the loss, which wounded a cohort of Bitcoiners who were among the most committed, Bitcoin cannot give up on self-custody and expect to retain its integrity. At least that is what many in the industry believe, and the case for that is clear. Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper clearly intended Bitcoin to be a solution to trusted third parties and intermediaries. It eloquently made the case against trusted hierarchies of finance as the 2008 financial crisis revealed the deep systemic risks and flaws legacy finance has led to. Well, many believe the 2008 crisis was never actually escaped. Its consequences still haunt us to this day. Going back further to the birth and proliferation of the modern banking system and its fiat currency, the 6102 executive order signed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1933 saw the persecution and confiscation of gold from centralized trusted third parties and citizens. $300 million in gold was returned after the executive order threatened gold owners with heavy fines and jail time if they did not sell their gold bullion back to the banks at $20.67 per ounce. Over 14 million troy ounces worth of gold were turned in as a result. Another 200 million troy ounces are estimated to have been held in the American banking system at the time. The banking system, not just in the U.S., but worldwide, was built atop a gold standard, at least at the time. The U.S. was the largest economy of the world at that time, with the biggest concentration of gold inside its borders. Its abandonment of the gold standard was a death blow to gold as a free market pricing mechanism for goods and services as a whole. Governments throughout the world, now free from the chains of, sound money, quickly fed and fattened themselves from the hidden tax of inflation. At the time of the executive order, the price of gold was artificially fixed to $20.67 an ounce. Not 1 year later, it was repriced to $35 with the passing of the Gold Reserve Act in 1934, a 69% devaluation in the dollar. Let's pause right there. First of all, so I can get my wits about me. Second of all, to explain the 69% devaluation of the dollar. If you didn't catch it, what that meant was that $35 versus $20.67, if you compare both of those to the United States dollar, right? The $35 an ounce is what they revalued it at. You got $20.67 in cash for the ounce that you handed in the year before. Yeah, your dollar, the dollar that you got in 1933 for turning in your gold was devalued by almost 70% the very next year simply by them repricing the gold to $35 an ounce. That's what they're saying. Okay, now, continuing on. The fiat standard was thus delivered to governments throughout the world on a silver platter by an unholy alliance between the banking system and politicians. It granted central banks the legal right to counterfeit money, to print it at will, in fact. It was soon followed by, of course, World War II, which was funded by, you guessed it, fiat currency. Tens of millions of people sacrificed in this war at the altar of state power. Fast forward 100 years and U.S. government debt demands almost $1 trillion per year be paid in interest alone, with total owed close to $40 trillion and debt to GDP sitting at 123%. These are arguably the inevitable yet predictable consequences of the death of the gold standard. The purchasing power of the dollar has collapsed in the century that followed, at the same time as technology has gone parabolic in its efficiency gains. That is only possible with money that has continually become worthless for decades. And the dollar is the best of the fiat. That's so sad. Confiscation of gold in a rising power like the United States murdered the gold standard. It, however, could not have been possible if civilian custody of gold had been wider and more distributed. Many of the civilians who returned millions in gold after the 6102 executive order had just taken it out of their accounts in a bank run. Their names were known. The amount of gold they held tallied. If gold was easier to move in large quantities, if private gold ownership totals had been more ambiguous, if removing the free flow of gold had not been so easy for the state to do by knocking on the doors of bankers and pointing a gun, then perhaps the economies of the world would not have been able to withstand such a vast and destructive war, as was World War II for so long in the following decade. Bitcoin poses an alternative to gold, designed to learn from its inadequacies. Bitcoin has better properties to resist and survive such a confiscation. Bitcoiners envision and aspire to unlock a world that adopts Bitcoin as a global monetary standard, where a large minority or even a small majority of the global economy uses Bitcoin as their primary store of value. In such a future, Bitcoin would take the place of gold and return sound money to the so-called capitalist order. To reach global reserve currency and defend this position, Bitcoin will need to be better than gold. And it can be better precisely because of its digital nature. The control of private keys, as difficult as it seems now in the shadow of the Coldcard hack, nevertheless can be far more powerful than any physical vault. Multi-signature scripts alone unlock distributed storage of Bitcoin private keys, such that a threshold of them must approve to move coins. This means that multi-jurisdictional, multinational vaults can exist and escape, or at least resist, the greedy hands of a large state that might attempt some new kind of 6102 takeover. The digital nature of Bitcoin means large amounts of value can be moved easily as well, without having to send the Navy on a mission to pick up the gold, like the French did. Without having to build a trusted hierarchy of banking custodians to transfer it. Civilians, with tools available today and better tools that are yet to come, might be able to hide their Bitcoin ownership, as has been done in war-torn countries like Ukraine already, escaping a fearsome state's grip over the public's wealth. Ultimately, a major hardware wallet manufacturer has failed the Bitcoin industry. The fundamental qualities of Bitcoin, or rather, the fundamental qualities of money remain the same, and among them all, as identified by Aristotle and others beyond him, Bitcoin remains king. I'm not sure that Aristotle said anything about Bitcoin, but I'll give it to Wangald. I think I'm reading this, and I'm reading somebody who has written something very passionately, but also very quickly, which this is problematic given the time that of its release. And I'm not saying that Juan and Bitcoin Magazine should have waited on this. I'm just saying, let's look at what happened. You got shook. I got shook. Everybody got shook. There's a lot of people that got shook. Right down to the foundations of this whole goddamn thing. Is our Bitcoin even safe? Now this brought home, I guarantee you, if you're not thinking about it yet, you'll be thinking about it now. Quantum. No, I'm not trying to scare the piss out of anybody. I'm just saying I can almost guarantee that a lot of people started saying, we didn't even see quantum. This was just AI, and AI did it, at least as far as we know. I don't know. I still think I'm still leaning towards inside job from the guys at CoinKite because of this Peter Gray and some of the things that Coldcard had tweeted out. But really, it's the Peter Gray thing that has me shaking. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't have time. You got to go listen to yesterday's episode. In either event, I guarantee you're going, fuck, if this happened with AI, if that's what happened, and again, I still think it's more inside than that, and I may be wrong, but if you're thinking that way, that it's like AI, then what the hell do we really do with quantum? Maybe these guys were right. Maybe the quantum guys really do know. Maybe Jim Cramer selling his Bitcoin because of quantum is really the right way to go. Well, I got news for you. If we can't figure this out, we're host, because this is the last thing that we got. People are still not going to go back to gold. Countries are not going to peg their fiat currencies to gold. If they do, it's going to be very small countries, but it's not going to be countries that are consequential to the global market structure. It's just not going to happen because these guys are too fucking in debt. They cannot do it. The math doesn't work. And if they try, like if the United States or, God forbid, the European Union or even just the United Kingdom alone repeg their fiat currency, directly to gold at anywhere close to 100%, you're going to see market structure fail. Because the market structure is built on shit that cannot be pegged to anything. This is it. This is the last fucking defense that people of the world, the citizenry, the regular Joes, the bricklayers, the pipe fitters, the welders, the guys that go into an office and just try to get through their day. This is our last stand. After this, there is nothing. So we either pull together and we figure this the fuck out, or we throw up our hands and just decide to live in a prison for the rest of our lives, our children's rest of their lives, their children's lives, their children's, you name it. Because Klaus Schwab and his clown show actually won the day. And it only takes one day for these assholes to win. And it's no wonder, it is no wonder that, and I can't remember the guy's names. David, not Isaac. I think that's a performer. I can't remember his last name. He was on Alex Jones' show a lot. He always talks about lizard people. You know, that Queen Elizabeth was actually a reptile. I don't know. No. But I know why people like that think that. Because it's the only thing that makes sense. You want to go fishing. You want to go do your job. You want to go to your job, and maybe you like your job and you want to do a really good job because you like your job. You want to love your kids. You want to have kids. You want to get married. You love your wife. You love your husband, whatever. That's what you're concerned with. So it becomes completely alien when people like George Bush Sr. during his time at the CIA was completely in cahoots with the House of Saud, and were working deals through Henry Kissinger during Nixon's time to make sure that Saudi Arabia bought our debt and only sold oil in dollars and all. We don't understand that. We don't understand people like Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum. We don't understand Hillary fucking Clinton. We don't understand Bill Clinton. We don't understand why all these people associated with Epstein are going to just walk free. They're never going to see jail time. And I doubt that Epstein himself is actually dead. We don't understand this. We are not built to understand this. And that is why you get, David Icke. That's the guy that I'm thinking of. David Icke. Also, people pronounce it David Icke. But Icke and a whole bunch of people like that keep saying, no, it's really real. These people are actual lizard people. They're not humans. I don't know. I guess maybe they wear human costumes or something, but that's not it. We're just unable. We're unable to try to tease apart the threads of what it means to see people that are in power do the things that they're doing. Because we're constantly telling ourselves, why don't you just want to go fishing? Why don't you just want to learn how to raise chickens? Why are you going to Davos all the time? Why are you hanging out with these evil people? That's why. That's why people like David Icke say the things that they say. And if I pull apart or I pull away just the lizard people from people, like David Icke says a lot of things and then he says lizard people. If I pull just the lizard people out and I set it aside and I pretend like he never said anything about that, I agree with damn near most of the stuff that he says about the world order. These people are sick. They're sociopaths. They're psychopaths. And we're all caught in the middle. And yet we have the advantage of numbers. We outnumber these people. And yet we just sit here. So Bitcoin this is the last fucking stand. This is it. This fails. We got nowhere to go. So we're going to pull together. We're going to get our shit straight. We are actually going to stay humble and stack sats, but we're going to figure out what the humble actually means. We know what stacking sats is. That's easy enough. You just buy Bitcoin, you hold Bitcoin. What does humble mean? Maybe humble means, instead of bitching about rolling dice, and there are people that are doing that, maybe we should learn to roll dice. Instead of people saying, no regular person will ever, 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 use their tokens to help a hardware wallet company do an audit because they don't know how. Well, I'm going to say the following: we better learn how. That's what I'm going to say. We better learn how. But I'm not suggesting that means that you have to go learn how to code and be an expert in chaos theory. That's not what I'm talking about. Everybody needs as many eyes as they can get. Even the eyes that are looking in a completely different direction from what anybody else would look at, and it's blurry vision. You would need corrective lenses to, at least it's going to give you like, hey, there's light over here and the color is red or something like that. You don't even have to be in focus for the organism itself to be able to take that data and say, oh shit, there's a red flag behind me and I didn't see it. Even if the eyes themselves don't understand what they're looking at, as long as they deliver the information to the organism can process that data and figure out, is it important? And yes, it is still going to be true that most people won't roll dice. Most people won't help with swarm auditing, like I've said. Most people won't care. They'll just go to their banks and they'll do whatever. Well, fine. If that's who you want to be, then go ahead. Go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. And for those of us who don't want to be that, we need to stop. Maybe we need to stop thinking or fretting so much about how all these people are just walking to their doom. Let them. Let them. Because I don't know what else to do. And at this point, I am still of the mind where it is, if you feel safer having a third party custody your Bitcoin, if it's going to put you at ease for the next few months, do it. If you still want to custody your own Bitcoin, then how safe do you feel with the company that you've selected to do that for you? And what did you do that you could do to the best of your ability to assure yourself that this is at least the better decision to be able to make than some other decision? We are no longer in the world where we can just let everybody do everything for us. Because that's not when SoapMiner makes his soap. It always reminds me of my great grandfather and great grandmother who made their soap, because everybody made their own soap. It was just something you do, like throwing your dirty clothes into a washing machine. Everybody does that. Back in the day, people not only did that, they actually had to make the soap to wash the clothes with. It was nothing to them. It wasn't like they were miserable because they were doing it. There was probably people that really liked making soap, that they made it a family deal. I don't know, but they did it. But now we don't do anything. We have fast food people make our shitty food for us. We're always going to restaurants. There's hardly anybody that I know outside of my family that actually knows how to cook. And I'm not being facetious. That's actually true. I know very few people that actually know how to cook. They live in houses with fabulous fucking kitchens, but they're never in use other than to pour a bowl of cereal, because otherwise they're ordering pizza or they're going to a restaurant. The time of general apathy and laziness is over. Let's run the numbers. CNBC futures and commodities, and everything is fine in the Middle East. And I can tell because Brent North Sea is down another 0.75 of a point to 78.78. West Texas Intermediate is down 1.5% to 74.57. Natural gas is a hedge, which means that everybody's on their wait and see situation. In other words, things are stable, so natural gas can be the hedge. Up a third to $2.69 per 1,000 cubic feet. Gasoline down 1 1/3 to $2.81 a gallon. And Murban crude is actually up 1 1/3 to $77.91. Metals, as you might imagine, are doing well, except for platinum, which is down 0.5 point. But palladium is up 0.8, and gold tearing through it 3.6% in the green to 43.02 and 6 dimes. Silver is up 3 1/3 as well to 62.28, and copper is up 1 1/3. Ag is mostly in the green today. The biggest loser, however, is lumber, 1.5% to the downside. Biggest winner is it's wheat, 1 1/4 to the upside. Live cattle up 2/3 point. Lean hogs down 1 2/3 point. Feeder cattle up 0.5. And the S&P is up 0.02%. NASDAQ is down 1/3. The Dow is up 0.75 point, and the S&P Mini is down 1/3. But don't let that shit fool you, because we are past all-time highs on the Dow. All right, now we're down a little bit from earlier this morning when it made yet another all-time high. But don't let the Dow being the Dow being up only 0.74% fool you. We are way up. And the NASDAQ is almost back to its previous all-time high that was recorded a few weeks ago. The S&P, new all-time high. It's like nothing has happened. And the train just keeps trucking. Meanwhile, Bitcoin is at what? $64,690. It's a $1.3 trillion market cap. We can get 15.3 ounces of shiny metal rocks with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 20 million, 65,988.64 of. Average fees per block, 0.02 Bitcoin taken on a per block basis, in fees, that is. It's about 48 blocks carrying 93,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 2 sats per VByte. Low priority is going to get you in at 0.6. 944 exahashes per second is the security on the Bitcoin network. So we're still pretty high. It's still pretty high when it comes to security of the blockchain. Anyway, if you want to support this show, and I want you to support this show because otherwise I have no idea if what I'm doing actually matters, you can go to bitcoinandshow.com. That's bitcoinandshow.com. You can buy in fiat. Yes, I know. I take fiat, but it's converted to Bitcoin when it gets to my Strike account, because I've got all of my Stripe, like the white stripes, my Stripe account, which connects all of my online shit, all goes to Strike, Jack Maller's outfit, and it's instantly converted to Bitcoin at that point. So it doesn't matter if you pay me in Bitcoin or fiat, it all ends up in Bitcoin anyway. And if you need to pay in fiat, that's okay. Bitcoinandshow.com. I got a couple of tiers that you can pay for. I've got a completely free tier. And if you can't just, shower me with dollar, holla, dollar, then, at least tell your friends and family and say, look, this guy puts out a daily show. He's going to let you know what's going on with Bitcoin for that day, so that at least you know what the hell's going on. Spread the word of the show. I mean, it can work. And if you want to pay directly in Bitcoin, you can use Podcasting 2.0, like on Fountain app. You can get Fountain app at fountain.fm, both for Android and iOS. That way you can give me things called boostograms, like this one that I got from Jay from yesterday's episode of Bitcoin And, which was entitled Coldcard Was an Inside Job, which I still believe. And he gives me 21,000 sats. Actually, this show is the highest amount of sats that I think I've ever raked in, or the highest amount of donors that I think I've ever raked in with 5-figure Satoshi donations. Thank you, Jay, for your 21,000 sats. He says, I think the value and importance of trust in human society is sorely undervalued by the phrase, don't trust, verify. Can't disagree. Mutum, with 12,321 Satoshi, says, appreciate your candid thoughts on the CoinKite situation. Still processing the ramifications for our community, but glad for the folks that are trying to help. I agree. Joey DD with 10,000 sats says, spicy episode. Love it. Lots to chew on. And then he gives me another 10,000 Satoshis and he says the exact same thing, which leads me to believe that he accidentally gave me an extra 10,000 sats. Joey, if you're listening, try to get a hold of me on Nostr if you want those 10,000 sats back because you like double dipped on that. I'd be more than happy to make sure that you get that 10,000 sats back. I'm going to keep the first one though, because, you know, I love you too. Terran with 2,002 sats. It's a palindrome boost. Says 0 chance Coldcard is not an hold on. 0 chance Coldcard. It is not an inside job. The facts, timing, and results speak for themselves. I feel for those who have lost their Bitcoin, having not long got and set up a queue. I feel I just dodged a bullet. Thanks. I think what he means to say is that there's 0 chance Coldcard is not an inside job, but, you know, hey, we all got to learn to write better, me included. There are some things that I write sometimes where I'm like, did I write that? Holy shit. I think I just confused somebody. Yeah, we all got to learn how to write, you know, because it's like, or at least, you know, proof our thing, because otherwise, I'm not exactly sure what Terran is saying. Does he believe Coldcard was an inside job or does he not believe it? I think he believes that it was an inside job because it's kind of hard not to see that shit right now. That may change. Oak Grove with 2,000 sats says, all it takes for David to release longer episodes is the world to start burning for Bitcoiners. Also, you can tell who fears God by whom is helping out the community right now. That's an interesting thought, Oak Grove. God's Death with 1237 sats says, thank you, sir. No, thank you. Cycros with 500 says, the cloak and dagger shit with Switch is heating up. He's talking about that guy, that GitHub account that I was telling you about yesterday. People were already looking for a reason for this to be inside. Still not totally convinced, but it does look sketchy as fuck. Never been more glad I had fun playing dice games with my Bitcoin. German Hodl with 500 says nothing. Nick Dose with 253 says cheers. Nostr Gang with 101 says feels like a controlled demolition. I could definitely see that. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. Warrant Canary. If you haven't heard of this situation with bolts, listen up, because it takes a couple of twists, right? So Adam Simica, I think is Simica, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce his name, on X, put out a tweet yesterday, and I've heard this a couple of times, but he actually has a screenshot. He says, this is bigger than the Coldcard news. Canary, bolts exchange. And then he's got a screenshot. And the screenshot is of bolts.exchange, the website. And it says Warrant Canary. And that Warrant Canary was, it has expired, essentially, is what's going on here. Now, again, there's a twist, so hold on to your seat. But this is a screenshot of the Warrant Canary from the website on Bolts. And it's got the PGP key. It's got, you know, it basically says the maintainer and admins of the software project known as Bolts Exchange have received and complied with 0 requests for information of any kind by any third parties, including but not limited to government agencies. We will renew this notice in 60 days time. If this notice fails to be renewed by then, you should assume the worst. I am the admin of bolts.exchange. I am in control of my PGP key. I will update this canary within 60 days. Today is 2026-05-31. That means May the 31st. This is the canary. I mean, some people actually had on their websites an actual canary, right, on their website. And if you look down at the canary page and that yellow canary bird looking thing was gone, that means that the warrant canary is gone, which means that they've been served with some kind of warrant from some kind of agency, somewhere wanting their information. So Bolts had closed up shop a couple of days ago, and I told you about it yesterday. They're saying that they need to get their shit together, and there's some AI attacks going on, but they let the warrant expire. They did not renew the warrant in 60 days until yesterday, I guess. We're about to find that part out because, again, here's the twist. Pleb for Fun has written back and replied to Adam's tweet and says, it is updated now, by the way. Nothing burger. And Pleb for Fun has a screenshot of bolts.exchange. And the screenshot essentially says all the same thing. Like, I am the admin of bolts.exchange. I am in control of my PGP key. I will update this canary within 60 days. Today is 26/08/05, which is today. It's August the 5th, 2026. So they've updated the warrant canary, except there was a 5-day lapse, 5-day lapse, because it should have been updated at least on the 1st, I guess, because it was done, like the first warrant canary was done in May. Is that what it said? I think it was May. Let me get back to it. May the 31st was when they did the update for the warrant canary. And then, so there was March, April, May, June, July. There's 30 days in June, 31 days in July. So on somewhere around the 1st of the 1st, they should have updated the warrant canary and bolts.exchange, but they didn't. But they did do it today. So they're like, 3, 4, 5 days, 4 days. Let's just call it 4 days late, depending on how they're doing their math, right? They're 4 days late. That's 4 days that the warrant canary had failed, or basically was not updated. That should actually be a message, because the warrant canary is an important thing. And even, one of the first people that I saw put a warrant canary on their website, amazingly enough, was Vitalik Buterin on the Ethereum website. He was one of the ones with the little yellow bird. And if the little yellow bird was gone, the canary had died, which meant that somebody somewhere from some agency somewhere is demanding information, or there's something very wrong inside the organization. And that's how you're supposed to know. Because if you don't know what the canary is, it comes from mining and not Bitcoin mining. I'm talking about like gold mines and coal mines and silver mines and being underground with a bunch of sweaty, dirty ass men. And no, stop being gay. What I'm getting at here is that if you're down in like a coal mine and noxious gases start getting released that will kill your ass, or there's a buildup of carbon monoxide from all the breathing that's going on, generally speaking, this is all having to do with bad ventilation in a mine shaft. Because you should be pumping lots of clean air from outside down into the mine, and then it expels all the exhaust and all the fumes and all the carbon monoxide back up the shaft. All right, you should always have clean air when you're 300 feet below the ground, because air doesn't generally permeate that low. So the canary was carried by the miners. There would be each team, like if there was 10 guys and they were going on a shift, they would carry their own canary in a cage and they would carry it down into the mine shaft. And the reason is this: the canary would die because of stuff like carbon monoxide poisoning or noxious gases being released long before a human would even sense something was wrong. So if the canary died, that was your signal to get out of the mine. That is the whole reason behind the warrant canary on websites. It's to signal that something is wrong. Now, the reason that was given by Bolts comes from this tweet that is part of this thread. Bolts HQ, the Twitter account at BOLTZHQ, says, as of this morning at 5:31 a.m. my time, related as in, and I don't know what that means, related as in, : We were busy trying to survive and it was overlooked, meaning the warrant canary. Will update shortly, again, meaning the warrant canary. And then later on that day, they actually did update it. But now we're confused because essentially, technically, the canary died. And you're not supposed to look at anything in a warrant canary situation. You're not supposed to look at anything else other than the warrant canary is dead. Get out of the mine. But now the warrant canary has been resurrected. Is it the undead warrant canary? What should I think about that? So right now, honestly, I got to tell you, man, if you're a Bolts customer, you should maybe demand a full-length explanation of what the hell's going on at Bolts. Because right now, and I don't use Bolts. I don't know anybody at Bolts. They don't sponsor the show because nobody sponsors this show. I have to look at this entire situation is that Bolts is permanently compromised. Now, don't take my word for it. Go do this shit for yourself. But I'm just telling you the way that I feel about this. If I, like, for some reason I woke up this morning and I said, I need to start using Bolts for X amount of reasons, and I came across all this mess, I would not use Bolts because the canary died. Just because it's been resurrected doesn't mean anything. And honestly, I don't know what it is that they would be able to say unless I actually met with like the entire senior staff, which is maybe one or two guys, 4 beers at a bar face to face so that I could see the musculature in their face as they're talking and telling me that everything is fine. Be aware. Jim Cramer sold his Bitcoin. He did. Well, at least that's what he said he was going to do. Jose Antonio Lands out of decrypt.co. Jim Cramer is selling his Bitcoin over quantum threats. Crypto Twitter is thrilled because every time Jim makes a move, you do the opposite. Okay, CNBC host and longtime crypto critic Jim Cramer is out on Bitcoin again. This time it's over fears of the coming quantum computing threat. And it sounds like he might be out for good, which is music to the ears of Bitcoin investors everywhere who prefer to be on the opposite side of the Cramer trade. Quote, should I be more careful? Cramer asked late last week while interviewing IBM CEO Arvind Krishna, worried about whether quantum computers would be able to steal all his Bitcoin. Quote, I think that you should give yourself 3 or 4 years, Krishna replied. And at that point, I would get rather paranoid about it. End quote. Cramer did not wait 3 or 4 years. Quote, I realize I'm waiting. Ethereum, really, maybe even worse. So I think that people have to take this man seriously because they're doing commercial quantum. Arvind Krishna knows quantum incredibly. He knows Bitcoin and quantum, and I'm going to sell mine. End quote. Further quote, he's the man. 3, 4 years. David, you know when 3, 4 years is going to happen? Like tomorrow. End quote. Oh my God. Woo. Damn, Jim. You know when 3 or 4 years is going to happen? Like tomorrow. You sound like a cheerleader. You literally sound like a high school cheerleader in a cute little skirt running around at a beer party being cute. Like, dude, 3 or 4 years. You know when 3 or 4 years is going to happen? In 3 or 4 years. That's when it's going to happen. For fuck's sake. The clip went around fast, pulling 89,000 views on X and over 9,000 views on YouTube, yada, yada, yada. Quote, thank you, Jim. Read one of the top replies. Let's go, went another reply. One user simply asked, I thought he had already sold his Bitcoin. Okay, well, whatever, dude. Scroll down here, there's a bunch of tweets. That gratitude isn't sarcasm as much as it is actual strategy. Traders have spent years tracking the inverse Cramer pattern, the running joke that the reliable move is whatever he didn't say. Somebody built a fund on it. Turtle Capital launched the Inverse Cramer Tracker ETF in 2023, betting against every Jim Cramer pick alongside a long Cramer fund that bets with them. Both closed. The long version died first. The short version followed in February of 2024 with $2 million in assets. Quote, "We started it in order to point out the danger of following TV stock pickers, Jim Cramer specifically, and the total lack of accountability. We feel like we have accomplished that mission," portfolio manager Matthew Tuttle said. The Bitcoin record is why the meme stuck. Cramer said he'd sold everything and wouldn't touch crypto in a million years back in December of 2022 when Bitcoin was at $16,796. It gained more than 400% over the next 3 years. He reversed course in January 2024, calling Bitcoin a technological marvel and that it's here to stay. He has also dared people to bet against him and pushed back on claims that he called the top. Last Christmas, Tracker Unbiased logged his calls as fully bearish while Bitcoin sat near 87,500. Bitcoin rose about 1.6% on the day that he announced the sale. It's worth noting, though, that no one that we're aware of has confirmed any size of his position or even that it ever existed. Cramer hasn't publicly shared any Bitcoin wallet addresses, so there's just no way to check. Anyway, that's where we are with little Jimmy right now. On to BlackRock, bringing up tokenized money market is being brought. Hold on, let me do that again. BlackRock brings tokenized money market funds to Europe via JPMorgan. The hell is this all about? Cointelegraph, Ezra Reguera. BlackRock will offer tokenized versions of select European money market funds using JP Morgan's blockchain infrastructure. According to a Tuesday Bloomberg report, the offering will include pound sterling, euro, and US dollar share classes from BlackRock's institutional cash series, collectively managing about $311 billion. Each token will represent a share in an underlying money market fund and can be transferred around the clock between approved digital wallets. And that's all we need from that. So BlackRock, using JP Morgan's infrastructure, is going to tokenize money market funds in Europe. What could possibly go wrong? I'm sure it'll be fine. You'll be fine. Finally, clarity, act or not. Crypto isn't going back in the bottle, according to Bitwise. Felix Ng at Cointelegraph. A failure to pass the Clarity Act this week will put the bill in a walking dead state, but won't stop the crypto industry's march forward, according to Bitwise Chief Investment Officer Matt Hogan, or Hogan. I can't pronounce his name. In a blog post on Wednesday, Hogan said, while many, including himself, have called it the make or break week for the Clarity Act, the reality is the crypto industry has made too much progress to go back in the bottle. Quote, "The reality is that Washington is always late to major technology shifts, and it has rarely mattered as much as people feared," end quote. His comments come as the Senate faces an August 5th deadline, that's today, to advance the landmark crypto market structure bill before the summer recess, with many concerned that failure to pass this week could see the bill pushed into next year as lawmakers focus on the midterm elections in November. And then they talk about the chances that it's going to pass. Dude, it's today. It's today, or apparently, I guess, and I heard, our senator from Wyoming, I can't remember her name. She's very famous, and I should know her name. Her name is on all the Bitcoin bills. She's saying that they may push this into the weekend. The vagaries of how the U.S. Congress works at that particular level is beyond me. So I'm not even going to conjecture. Is it today? Is today the last day? Is tomorrow the last day? What about Friday? She's talking about pushing it into the weekend. I don't know what that means. Honestly, it's all a bunch of horse shit. I want to read this quote to you again. The reality is that Washington is always late to major technology shifts, and it has rarely mattered as much as people feared, said Matt Hogan. You know what I think? I think Matt knows that this bill isn't going to pass, or it's not going to be advanced to a position where it will pass or fail. I think Matt knows that it's going to have a negative effect on Bitcoin price, and I think Matt is trying to basically soften or cushion the blow of that price downward kind of thing by saying, oh, well, it doesn't matter. The Clarity Act, I said it mattered, but in reality, Washington's always late, and honestly, whatever they do, it doesn't really matter. It never really mattered as much as people thought. This just sounds like he's soothing himself because, and I don't know Matt personally. I've never met him. I've never talked to him, never had a beer with him. And those things are important when you're trying to talk about somebody else. But I got a gut feeling that Matt's like, he's backtracking. He's backpedaling. Oh, it's not as important as we thought. Well, chances are really good considering Matt's proximity to this entire clown show. And he is very close to the clown show, that he knows something that, it's just not going to make it past whatever finish line or deadline that we got. And it's going to cause problems, so we might as well say shit like, oh, it doesn't matter. And I think that that's what's going on. I guess we'll find out in a couple of hours, because I don't know what close of business is for the United States government. I don't know what the end of the business day, what time that actually is. Is it 5 o'clock Eastern time? Is it 7 o'clock? Is it 4 o'clock? They keep banker hours and like go golfing at 3:30 in the afternoon. Fuck, I don't know. I don't give a shit, honestly. Because, while Matt, I think, is self-soothing there, I also kind of think he's right. I just think he's pulling it out of his back pocket because he's like, God dang it. They weren't going to be able to do it. The Clarity Act is a bad act. It's a bad bill. I'm not going to defend it either way, or I'm not going to attack it, nor I'm not going to, I'm not going to defend it. I will attack it. It doesn't have the protections for developers that it really needs. But it really is more about stablecoins than it actually is about Bitcoin. But it also carries a $600 de minimis transaction so that you would be able to spend Bitcoin or whatever crypto that you have directly to purchase goods and services. And as long as it's under $600, you ain't got to report it on your taxes, which is freaking awesome. And that would be great to see. But, between the ethics problems and the Trump family and Elizabeth Warren wetting her britches all the time, and the cat fighting going on about this, I don't give a shit. What I really care about here is that it doesn't offer the developer protections. And they keep compromising, and it gets to the point where there is no developer protections. So honestly, if the Clarity Act passes, it's dangerous for developers because it kind of seals it into law. So I kind of don't want to see it pass. But no, I'm not looking forward to another 6% price drop. I'm not. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm tired, boss. I'm tired, man. I've been through the Coldcard shit that we're still going through. I don't know if my security setup with another wallet is good enough. I don't know if taking it to a third-party custodian is good enough. I don't like where I live. I could go all into it, man. I wish I was in Southwest Colorado for the rest of my life, or West Texas for the rest of my life, because at least, from West Texas, I can drive to Southwest Colorado in 10 hours. You know how long it takes me to get to Southwest Colorado from where I live right now? 2 days. I can do the whole drive in 19 hours, but dude, when was the last time you drove for 19, 20, 21 hours straight? It sucks. It sucks. I thought it would be better doing that than having to take a break and buying a hotel room, but no, it actually sucks worse. It sucked when I was 16 years old. I think I was 17, I was 18 years old. I drove from Midland, Texas to Los Angeles, California in one shot. And I was 18. You'd be like, oh, well, yeah, of course you were 18. You could do it. It still sucked. It was 2 days. It was like, well, it wasn't 48 hours of pure driving, but it was like 26 hours of being in a Jeep CJ7 with 5 on the floor. You want to talk about all, tried sleep deprivation when you're, going into Los Angeles morning traffic and you've got a 5-speed transmission on a Jeep CJ7. Yeah, that's fun. That's a blast, boy. No, so I could go into all the horrendous shit that's going on, but I still come back to the major thing, the major place where we're at. We're at the last fallback position with Bitcoin. It either works or we're all hosed, because none of the people that are in control care. In fact, I've always said this. They don't care about you. But now I'm going to expand that. I don't think they care much for each other either. The internal power structure, or the internal fighting that's going on in the power structure, I think they don't care about each other. I think they don't really like each other. I think they like their friends. I think they have friends inside that power structure, and they're making sure that those guys, those gals will be all right. But, Cynthia, was it Cynthia Newland? I can't remember her name. Newland, she was like a Secretary of State at one point for, I can't remember who. Was it Biden or Bill Clinton? She hates the power structure of the EU. She said, fuck the EU. That's like this as high up as you get in the United States. So even the power brokers themselves, I don't think they care about each other. They certainly don't care about me. Pretty sure they don't care about you, unless you happen to be in the power structure listening for whatever reason to this podcast. If you happen to be in the power structure and listening to this podcast, you guard yourself, buddy, because they don't like you either. This is it. They're not going back to gold. They're not going back to silver. Bitcoin fails or we're all hosed. And hosed may actually look like this. Galt's Gulch from Atlas Shrugged, Ayn Rand's book that a lot of Bitcoiners run around reading and suggesting to people. And there's good reason for that. I've never read the book. I watched the Piss Ant movie, or the Piss Poor movie, a couple of times. The first one was actually pretty decent. The second two sucked ass, but it doesn't matter. It's a book that is probably worth reading. I probably need to read it. I've just got too many tree books in front of it. But Galt's Gulch, where we literally just have a small town, many small towns, geographically located, separate from each other, and we're not really in communication with each other, at least not economic communication with each other, because it's dealing in physical gold and silver. That'd be it. That may be what looks like we're all hosed. And that would be okay for a lot of people. Hell, it'd be kind of okay for me, but I want something more than just, a town of 1,200 people. It's like it may force us into citadels, in the kind of citadels that don't represent where we wanted all this to go. We wanted humanity to look different. And we still want it to look different. And it doesn't look any different. And you're not going to be able to save everybody. In fact, you're not going to be able to save most people. Stop trying. And it doesn't mean be selfish. It doesn't mean, that you need to hate them. You got to save who you can save. That's yourself and the people that are closest to you. We're going to have to learn how to help the small companies do their security. We're going to have to figure out a way to pool tokens so that some people who really do know what they're doing, and we'll have some tokens to be able to spend. But then we're going to have to figure out, how do we know that they know what they're doing? How do we vet that? And how do we make sure about all this shit? Because we got really complacent and we all got hosed. And honestly, it was our fault, because we got complacent. We got lazy. We got apathetic again. Maybe that's one of the things in the human spirit. Maybe when the Bible speaks of the 7 deadly sins, sloth, that would include being lazy. And I liken laziness to apathy. I think sloth, laziness, apathy, I think it's kind of all connected. I think it's actually a sin. And maybe it's there so that when it does do a gotcha on us, we go, oh shit, that's right. I've got to be a human. I've got to go out there and do the human stuff. I can't be lazy. I can't be apathetic. I can't let somebody cook my dinner for me. I can't depend on McDonald's always being there. I can't depend on CoinKite not being a bunch of freaks. I've got to actually go check. I got to learn to cook. I've got to learn to read, like at least a smattering of what chaos theory and randomness means before I start spouting it off to the next person. Oh, it's a random number generator, and not really knowing what that means, because we all sound fucking stupid now. But regardless of how stupid that we sound, this is it, buddies. This is the last line in the sand. We're gonna have to do it. I don't know what else to tell you, so I'm just gonna stop talking, and I'll see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.